The life of Sri Swami Tapovan is one shrouded in mystery. In Swami Chinmayananda's own words, Swami Tapovan was no tame individual to whom, even after 10 years of intimate service and total surrender, could I discover the necessary courage to ask of his personal life before he took sannyas. As such, accurate historical sources on the life of this great saint are few and far between. However, the purpose of this film is not to provide a historical biography, but instead for us to gain some inspiration from a life that was truly inspirational and to learn something of this rare jewel in the crown of the Himalayan peaks, without whom the very mission that we serve and the guru that we love would not have come into being. Sometime between 1886 and 1889, a boy named Subramaniam was born to a wealthy family in a medium-sized village in Kerala. Immediately he was nicknamed Kuti, a name that stuck with him throughout his early life. The entire childhood of Chipu was spent at the house of his father, a wealthy landowner in the village. Chipu's father had great hopes that his son would get himself educated in the modern sense of the term and come to occupy a high position in life. His early education started with the village teacher, and showing great promise and intellectual aptitude, Chipu progressed rapidly through the British colonial education system taught by the schools of the time. However, at the age of 14, young Chipu decided, much to his father's disappointment, that he could no longer spend his time studying and learning in this manner, and asked his father's permission to leave school and continue his studies at home. At first, he focused on gaining a tolerable knowledge and understanding of English, but his attention soon shifted to Sanskrit. He studied in the orthodox style and became a master of meter, grammar, and the infallible logic of this divine language of the gods. Yet even at this early age, the burning desire for spiritual knowledge had sparked in Chipu's heart. Although brought up in a wealthy household and often left to his own devices, the vanities of adolescence did not distract him. Solitude and books were his companions, and much of Chipu's time was spent in silent contemplation in the jungle surrounding the village. Even the most vague suggestion of marriage by his mother was met either with strong refusal or quiet rejection. Chipu was that rare soul in whom the pleasures of the world made not even the slightest impression. What he sought, even as a teenager, he knew the world could not offer. Then, at the age of 19, he was faced with the death of his father. While the historical details are sparse, there is no doubt that the death of his father was a turning point for Chipu. But with a brother still in college, Chipu found himself head of the family, a duty that overrode even that most noble of desires, the desire for liberation. Though he longed to revel in the uninterrupted bliss that the peace of the Himalayan peaks could offer, Chipu remained at home and fulfilled his family duties. But he found no joy in the life of a householder. The desire for liberation burned like a fever in his heart, and he lived like an ascetic, untouched by the foibles of family life. It is said that he who longs for enlightenment, in the way a drowning man longs for air, is alone fit for the final phase of the spiritual journey. In the 14 years from his father's passing to his eventual renunciation at the age of 33, the only respite Chipu had from this longing for liberation was pilgrimage. He travelled the length and breadth of India, spending months in ashrams across the country, from Madurai to Rishikesh, Madras to Dwarka. He encountered many saints and sages along the way, and spent extended amounts of time in the presence of holy men, many of whom saw the greatness in him, even in his early 20s. He was gifted with an immense intellect, but had coupled this with egoless devotion and intense physical austerity. Thus, at all levels, physical, mental, and intellectual, Chipu was preparing himself sharpening himself into an arrow of discrimination, so astute that no veil of ignorance could withstand its mighty force. He was a fearless pillar of spiritual strength, a quality that must have rubbed off on his disciple, Swami Chinmayananda, many years later. When he finally returned to Kerala, he built for himself a small thatched hut in the coconut gardens surrounding the family property. There he remained, reading, thinking, meditating, and praying. He slept on the ground, his only possessions being a single dhoti and a few books on Vedanta, in their original Sanskrit. He would enter the family home once a day to eat a small meal prepared by his mother and to wash himself in ice-cold water. Then, at the age of 33, after his brother had graduated from law school and he was able to manage the family affairs satisfactorily, Chipu emerged from beneath the water and gasped the breath of air he had waited so long to breathe. The burning desire in his heart for renunciation was finally allowed expression. And so, with divine determination, in 1923, Chipu left the village where he had spent the first 33 years of his life, never to return. The next 7 years were spent in solitary contemplation in and around the peaks of the Himalayas. He travelled throughout the region, visiting almost every area, and he is to this day known throughout some of the remotest villages in India. During this time, there was no written record of exactly where he went and with whom he met. He was a silent monk, free to roam the land that he loved. It is said that the most onerous burden a man can carry is his own ego. The unremitting encumbrance of our memories and miseries, our fears and doubts, our desires and vanities weigh us down, fatigue us, and ultimately drown us in the ocean of samsara. Freed from the shackles of worldly life and honed by the years of rigorous austerity and study, Chipu laid down his ego to rest and allowed his spirit to soar. Details of who bestowed the name Swami Tapovanam and where and when the Diksha or renunciation ritual occurred are sparse and contradictory. The identity of his Diksha guru is not clear, and in his travels he must have met and studied under many great spiritual masters, hidden like diamonds deep within the rifts of the Himalayas. As such, some would say that he had no single guru, that his soul had evolved so perfectly by this time that the requirement of ceremonial renunciation was irrelevant. Others say that he met one Swami of the Kailash ashram who suggested the name Tapovanam, but refused to offer formal diksha, saying that he was too close to the formless, that his soul had soared to such heights that the formality of a diksha ceremony was purposeless. Whatever the details, they were lost long ago. But perhaps the reason that there is so little written about this stage of his life is because there are no words that would have been adequate. It is as though the divine winds ordered the cosmos such that after 33 years of silent service and dutiful suffering, the great Lord saw to it that the death of Chipu's ego would be free from the gaze of the world that he so adamantly rejected. This much is clear. Sometime in his early 40s, the name Tapovan Kuti was discarded. Somewhere in the region of Rishikesh, in the early part of last century, the name, like the ego before it, was flung into the fire of self-knowledge and burned, leaving no ash. For the next decade, Swami Tapovanam lived the life of a Himalayan pilgrim, wandering from district to district, reveling in the tranquility of those lofty peaks. He attained his peace. His life of old was discarded, lost and forgotten, like a photograph decayed into dust. He spoke once of a traveller who had news of his family in Kerala. He described the incident as though remembering a dream, distant, faded, and unreal. He had attained that which we all seek, that unending inner bliss that resides in every heart. His travels were no longer that of a seeker. His evolution had reached its course, and his soul had merged into the infinite. He documented many of his experiences in what are essentially new forms of scripture. Hymn to Badrinath, Kailash Yatra, and Wandering in the Himalayas are some of his great works that blur the lines between Vedic mysticism and natural poetic beauty. For you see, for him, there was no difference. They are words from a soul that sees the universe as it is, perfect and pure. It is true that his austerities were renowned, and his writings tell of many incidents of the arduous life of mountain dwelling. There were many times when death was near due to lack of food, extreme weather, and hypothermia, but it is not these physical hardships that characterize his writings. It is instead the complete acceptance and detachment from these hardships that makes his words sparkle. He eventually settled in Uttarkashi, making the trek north to Gangotri every summer. It was here where he remained for the final 30 years of his life, chaste and pure, far and high. Quietly absorbed in the bliss of his own nature, he remained a shining beacon of perfection, a god without a temple. During this time, many devotees in search of an authentic master came to him to study and learn. Swamiji never encouraged or sought disciples. He believed that when the student was ready, the universe would arrange itself such that the master would manifest. Many came to him, but few remained. Only the strongest of wills could endure the austerities that Swami Tapovan practiced. Sleeping in the open with little or no food and bathing in the ice-cold waters of the Ganga every day were hardships that even the most dedicated of seekers could endure for no more than a few years. One of the few disciples that did remain was a young renunciate by the name of Swami Chinmayananda. If photographs of Swami Tapovan Maharaj are rare, then this video footage is truly unique. Taken by a devotee some 60 years ago, it shows Swami Tapovan with Swami Shivananda, head of the Divine Life Society and Diksha Guru of Swami Chinmayananda. And if you look closely, it also includes an image of a young Swami Chinmayananda. In 1957, Swami Tapovan Maharaj attained his Mahasamadhi. Many years later, Swami Chinmayananda and a young brahmachari, who would later come to be named Swami Swarupananda, sat together on a beach at twilight, looking out into the vast expanse of ocean. The brahmachari turned to his guru and asked him to speak of some incidents during his time with Swami Tapovanam. Gurudev's reply was that for an incident there must be an experience, and for an experience one must identify with the body. For he who is Brahman, there can be no incidents. Speaking of his guru, Swami Chinmayananda said only that he got up, took a bath in the Ganga, taught some of us Upanishads in the morning, ate a meal and slept. What else can I speak of? He is beyond speech. Thinking of his master, he fell silent, and together with the young brahmachari, they sat listening to the waves breaking on the shore. Listen, just listen. Between the rise of one wave and the setting of another, there is complete silence. The particular form the great Lord took in the name of Sri Swami Tapovan has dissolved and merged into his own nature. He has now become the essence in each one of us. Wherever we find the glow of divine compassion, love, purity, and brilliance, there we see but Sri Gurudev with his ever-smiling face. He has left his mortal coils. He has now become the self in each one of us. If we seek knowledge of Swami Tapovan, it is here where we must search. In the ocean of our minds, it is in the moment between the waves, where one thought breaks and another is yet to form, where there is nothing but the silence of our soul, that we will come to know our inner nature and come to realize the true nature of Sri Swami Tapovan Maharaj.